Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Off the Charts podcast. I'm Jasma.
And I'm Amber.
And today we're joined with Julia. Thank you so much for being here, Julia. How are you
Of
doing today?
course. I'm good. How are you guys?
We're great.
Good.
Good.
We are so excited to have you here. I know we were talking a little bit before we started, and the vibes are amazing already. So I'm incredibly excited for this. So as always, we're going to do a little intro for you guys just to get to know Julia a little bit more before we get into the nitty-gritty questions. So Julia is a now 17 years old. It was her birthday recently, so we're expecting happy birthday comments. 17-year-old youth filmmaker, painter, and photographer based in Toronto who has already made major strides in her founding her career as a youth creative. She's currently enrolled in the film program at the Etobicoke School of the Arts and has been a member of TIFF's youth programming team, the TIFF Next Wave Committee, for almost 3 years, which is amazing. With all of this experience, her work has been recognized and acclaimed in a variety of settings. For example, she's been a recipient of the Scholastic Art and Writing Silver Key, as well as had her work screened at the Philadelphia Youth Film Festival in 2019.
Her work ventures into a variety of different art forms and mediums, mainly exploring the stories of navigating Western societies through the influence of race. And Julia describes her work as aiming to attack Western oh my god, I knew I was going to mess that up, ethnocentrism, and shine a light on the duality between our cultural identities. Ultimately, she helps emphasize a world of understanding and connectedness, no matter your background, and clearly her profound impact in the arts is just beginning.
Wow.
We gotta say it right. And can I just say, I mentioned this to you before as well, but even clearly of Jasmine's little difficulty there, you've written that so well. We asked for a little information, and Julia just laid it out for us. She made our job so easy, so thank you. But yeah, so we're gonna get right into it. We want to start from the basics, a little bit about just generally your art form. So what drew you to filmmaking, photography, visual art? How did you get started with all of these forms?
Yeah. Well, I was always sort of the art kid of the family. I have a STEM family, and I was the one
Right.
little art kid. I was always drawing at my grandma's house all the time. She had a drawer full of stacks and stacks of my drawings when I was little. And then I used to take little art classes, and then when I stopped art classes, I guess my creativity kind of began to be channeled into I got the iMovie app on my iPod Touch, and then
Oh
I
my
started
God.
I started making those pre-made trailers. It started with that, and then I would make my own. Every time a friend would come over, we would make a little movie, and then I applied to the film program, and then entering art school in high school was the big break for me when all of those kind of little hobbies kind of came together, and I was oh, this is something I kind of realized this is something that's been so consistent in my life. Why don't I just make it a constant? And ever since then, I don't know, I've just been trying new things. I've been exploring different mediums and that sort of thing, just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. Yeah.
Good for you. I feel like it's really cool to start off with just, exploring the little things. I can literally see the iMovie transitions.
All
The
of them
fade
in
ins.
Oh my god.
The
Oh my
font.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, that's really cool. I wanted to talk a little bit about your specific goal when it comes to your different art forms. And you talked about attacking the Western ethnocentrism and just your overall aim to kind of, send out a message through the art that you do. So how did you kind of get started in that sense? Because, drawing can just stay in its little own bubble. But in terms of activism, that is something that, I guess it takes a little bit of educating and discovery. So how did you, figure out that's the goal of what art you want to do?
That's a really good question. I think when I first started making art in high school is when we entered an arts high school, they kind of teach you the basics of you're always making art, but then when you enter high school, they kind of taught us why we make art, I guess, and how to build from a concept and a statement that you want to make. And so for all of my first year of high school, I was making very, very personal work, and it all just really specifically had to do with my feelings and what I was going through. And then as I made more and more work, I kind of realized what those very specific internal emotions meant. And they all kind of came back to this one thing of feeling a sort of otherness and like these very specific feelings and not seeing them kind of portrayed anywhere else. And just like wanting to put them out there solely for myself. And then once you start putting the work out, you get people and you realize like so many people like are feeling the exact same way. And I don't know, once you start kind of building that community of people, like my work has like gained its own focus. Just it's rooted from like these personal experiences, and then they all kind of came together into this like this thing that already existed but I just didn't see before, that had to do with just like expressing emotions and like I guess legitimizing, is that a word? Legitimizing like those feelings.
Yes.
Yeah, and like making them kind of like more tangible or like understandable thing for all of us to like, experience.
Right. Wow. I mean, that seems like a lot to get in, I guess, to portray, I guess, in your artwork. So my question is, how do you even get started? Because that's probably, you're, like Jasmine was saying, it's not just like a rote art piece, and I guess not all of art is. It's really a path of discovery and then putting that into what your art can mean to people. So how do you get creatively inspired? Where do you start your process?
That's this is such a hard question because everyone has like such a I feel like whenever you ask that question, no one knows.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
It's very different.
But what I've noticed with myself is that my art tends to like come out of like a transitional period. So every transitional period in my life like results in like a group of work or like one piece. I don't know. It just really has to do with change and like periods in my life. You can kind of see it in the art, I guess. That's all I can say.
I wanted to ask you about your art because you have a very specific style. It's very different from the other things that I've seen. So I wanted to ask, like, did you take art classes when you were younger? How did you end up discovering that very unique style of visual art?
That's so interesting that you say that. I never, people say that to me and I just can't, I don't,
really?
that's
You
so
don't see it in
interesting.
your
I
art.
really don't.
Wow.
But that's great to hear. When I was in, I think the first grade, I started taking like children's art lessons, and we would just like fool. I would take them with my friends, so it would just be just like a fun after school thing.
Right.
Then in grade like 5 and 6, I think I started taking like more technical-ish stuff. Like we did a lot of like still life, that kind of stuff. And then I stopped because the still life just wasn't fulfilling, I guess. Yeah, and I was only doing it because I was with my friend. But once I got to high school, like all the art classes that I was taking kind of expose you the art classes that you take, but the community of people that you're surrounded by. Like it's all so influential because everyone's an artist and you're kind of forced to be constantly surrounded by it, which is awesome. And I don't know, it's all about like making work. I don't have like a specific artistic like person that inspires me. I think it's just been about just making work, and a lot of like reoccurring like things in my art or like ideas just come from, like not paying attention in class. I noticed that I can't make sketchbook work like ever unless I'm in a class not paying attention. That's the only time it happens. I don't know.
That's
Well,
very interesting.
that's a great excuse actually then to say like this is where I get my creativity, so
Yeah,
I can't be doing this. I want to actually talk because you were mentioning a lot about your visual art. We know that you also do a lot of media arts. So how was there a bigger transition between those two forms? And if so, what was that like? Like how was it from transitioning from doing that visual to putting it into a whole different form but still having the same sort of outcome?
Well, I think I definitely struggled with that, like putting the two together. And a lot of my visual art, I stopped drawing and painting and that sort of stuff until like when I was like in the grade 10 or something. Like it kind of really dropped off when I like started making films. And then when I started again, I was just kind of doing it for fun. Like it was mostly just a doodle, like random drawings, paintings, whatever. And it's hard to, like all of my conceptual stuff was kind of going into my films, and I had trouble like translating those concepts that I had onto like visual art in a visual art way, because my whole life visual art was just like technical stuff. Like visual art was just the stuff that I learned in class, and I think the more and more, I know everyone says this, but just like making work teaches you how to do that, and also seeing visual art and photography in film also really helps. Like every frame is a painting. I think that's a saying when it has to do like cinematography is a saying. Like when you start looking at films or like media arts, I guess, as visual arts or like still images, like it really helps in like understanding composition, which is not necessarily important, but also like the way that stories work and messaging works in like a film. Yeah.
Oh my God, I got so excited because I am also a very big film buff, so this is like music to my ears. It's kind of stuff.
I do visual arts myself, so
Cool,
this is also
We've got different sides of things.
Nice.
Well, then I wanted to ask if there's a specific medium that you prefer over one or the other, because I know that film and art is very different.
Yeah.
They're very interconnected, yet they're very separate. So they're like, how do you prefer to tell your stories?
See, at the moment, it's hard to say film because with quarantine, like I'm so used to film being like a community, like a bunch of people working together. It's very collaborative, and it's turned into me sitting in my living room like at the computer, like my hunchback, like animating. It's it's fulfilling in some way, but like without the community that like of like a film festival, it's hard to feel that same fulfillment. I've been really into painting recently. I think it's just very therapeutic. Like I can just start painting and like be gone for hours. And now that I'm learning how to like translate concepts into visual art, I think it's there's a certain excitement there that I didn't have before. Obviously, I definitely love film, but at the moment, visual arts has been taking my heart. But we'll see what happens for sure.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean, in quarantine, we all just have so much time, and art is it definitely just you can be in there for hours. And
honestly, it's good that you're putting it towards a creative use, whereas people like me, for example, and others, just not doing anything. So that's amazing on you to be putting it to some productivity.
I do a lot of nothing. It's okay.
Oh, good.
We all do.
That makes me feel better. Okay.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, actually, you mentioned film festivals, and I think that's a perfect segue into one of our next questions, which is about TIFF Next Wave, because that's been a big part of your life for the past almost 3 years. And I am also an avid adorer of TIFF Next Wave. You guys do some incredible stuff there. So talk a little bit about how that experience has, helped you grow as a person, as an artist, what that's meant to you.
Oh my God, I love TIFF Next Wave so much. I could talk about it all day. It's been so influential, and I genuinely don't know, number one, what kind of like work I'd be making if I hadn't joined, and number two, like as a person, like who I would be without it, because it's been so influential to every part of my life. I got on at the end of grade 9, and I was like fresh out of like my first year of high school. I was like kind of obnoxious, but like people still took me, and it was fine. But like it's been kind of like I've been almost growing up with it, and it's weird. Like growing through high school with Next Wave is really cool, and it's really interesting. But it's so influential to my art, because not only like are you like constantly watching films and like hearing stories from literally all over the world, and analyzing those, but you're also talking about those stories with like this group of like the most diverse group of people that I get to work with. It gives so much perspective, and it really gives you ability to kind of like enter the stories. And like obviously film is so powerful. You can connect with it like to such a deep level. It has so much influence on everyone. And as well, like Next Wave always, I talk about this a lot, but it really emphasizes the importance of community to the arts, and like that art would not exist without community. It's so important And it's so fulfilling. Next Wave is so fulfilling. Yeah.
Well, personally, I wanted to just hear more about like the work that you do on this committee, because I know Amber's a film buff and she knows a lot about these committees
I'm
and
aware.
stuff.
I'm aware. I got some knowledge.
Yeah, but personally, I didn't really know much about it until recently. So, like, what type of work do you do on the committee? How have you been, like, I know you do the festivals and stuff. Like, what type of impact does that make on society altogether, I guess?
Yeah. So we're kind of like, I guess, like the youth lens of TIFF. Like, we're the youth programming team. So we're like the lens of youth for the film festival. So during like the international, like the big one in September, we like watch all about like a lineup of films that they offer to us, and we like choose which ones that we feel are the most like relevant to youth. And then in February for our festival, or like working until February, we program our own festival with films, the same thing, like that are relevant to youth. For and then our festival's free for people under 25. And then past that, we're, you know, like writing film like blurbs to be on the website. And then we get to participate in a lot of outside film events, like different film festivals. It's a lot of film stuff, but you know, it's like we're just the youngest programmers, like trying to offer that like authentic youth perspective to TIFF. Yeah.
And you mentioned February, so does that mean that because I know you guys went virtual this year, so has that film festival already happened?
Yeah,
For next
that
week?
happened February 12th to 15th, I believe. Like, if that's the
Okay.
exact date. Yeah.
So not too
super
long
cool.
ago.
Yeah,
So
that's
how
why I
was-
was so bad at responding to emails to you guys, because I was
No
so
worries at
busy
all.
with it.
Don't even worry about it. Oh my god. That's again a perfect excuse. We will not say no. But how was that transitioning to virtual? Because that's, you know, usually I remember hearing that it's very much like you were saying, a community, or it's a huge festival, there's a lot of people that come, a lot of youth, and now it's completely online. And the team
Yeah.
actually recruiting was online as well. So how did that change things?
It was definitely interesting, but it was honestly shocking how much we were able to transition to online. Like, we did not miss a single event. I believe like we had
Wow.
everything online. We had our opening night party, and people were so, even separate from the community, just like people attending were so helpful and like passionate about making it good. And it was really, really beautiful to see. And it only emphasized to me like the importance of community, because I don't know, like just seeing people come to the events, like participate and be so excited about it, even though it was online, was just like so amazing. And it really makes you realize that like this thing would not exist without these people that you know participate in it.
Yeah, definitely. I wanted to hear though if there was anything specific you think was just you would like to keep when it comes to online events, because I know that when we transition back, there are probably going to be things that we maintain with the online way of doing things. So, in terms of festivals, what are some specific things that you think was really helpful that you can continue implementing throughout when we go back?
Yeah, I think like the use of social media was super cool. Like you reach such a larger audience when you're doing things like with social media, because it's so accessible to everyone. And also like being able to turn off your camera. Like when you're on a Zoom event, sometimes I just need to like lie down for a second and just like, and I wish I could do that in real life, but it's like not a good look. If I just started lying down during like
the middle of
like
the
in the middle of a speaker like talking, I'm just like
Just give me 1 second. I'm just gonna
yeah,
take
lie
your time.
down. That's like probably my number one thing is turning off my camera.
Dude, I feel like that applies to everything. Like
Everything.
online school.
School?
So good.
Oh my god, it's amazing. I can like do class in bed. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That is also, but that I will admit that is something that is like, it's good because it's comfortable, but also that the entire day I feel like it's just like set in the wrong direction for me, because then I'm
feel-
just
yeah.
like, I can just procrastinate and it's fine. No one will know.
Yeah.
Right?
I feel that.
Oh my god, I love that. I love that our mutual hatred of school is just. But that's amazing, yeah. And I think, when are you guys opening applications for new team members, in case anyone who's listening would like to be a part of the team?
It is late spring 2021, I believe. Yeah.
Cool. And you can check out the TIFF Instagram, right? For
Yeah,
any updates on
or
that?
the Next Wave website, tiff.net/nextwave.
Cool.
They'll be up
Okay.
there.
We're gonna have everything in the
Yeah.
description. So yeah, check it
Yeah.
out if you guys are interested and you think this is something you would want to
For
join.
sure.
Hopefully it's not virtual, but then again you get to take your naps, so
True. True.
right?
So
I love that. So I'm gonna jump back to one thing you mentioned in the beginning because it's been weighing on me, and I really think this could be something, an interesting story to hear about. So you mentioned that your family was very STEM based, right? And I think Jasmine and I can both relate to that very heavily. So what was it like wanting to be that aspiring artist who was kind of like the black sheep where no one else really knew if that was possible? Did you experience a lot of, like setbacks in that?
Yeah, definitely. And it's still an ongoing thing. Like, I listened to your guys' first episode, like a little part of it, and I remember Amber, you were talking about your family and like acting, and I was like, girl, me too.
We're the same way.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting. And as a kid, it wasn't like a big deal at all. Like, it was just cute little Julia's like drawing. That's so cute.
Right.
But then like, it's like, I want to go to arts university. They're like,
That's a thing.
no. It's interesting. It's hard. If like, I know you guys can definitely relate. Like, STEM families, especially immigrant STEM families, like it's hard because I don't know, like I think there's a lot of misconceptions about the arts world, but at the same time, like I get it. And I think a big part of the problem is like seeing like success as money, and I totally get why a lot of people, especially immigrants, would like correlate success with money because like obviously, but I also think there's a misconception of like there's a lot more careers in the arts than people think there are, and there's a lot of pathways you can take, and it's definitely scary, but and definitely when I came to art school in grade 9, I was like, I'm gonna do this forever and I'm gonna go to art school, and my parents were like, no, but the more you do, the more you pursue, and like the more you work, like they loosen up a little bit. And this is what everyone I've spoken to about this type of thing, it says like you just got to really push it, and maybe your parents will never ever let up, and that's gonna suck, but maybe they will. And like if it's truly for you, then it it's a small setback, but like in the grand scheme of things, it's like really really worth it to keep pushing that and really solidify that like this is something that's been consistent in my whole life. It's something I'm so passionate about, and I'm actively doing all these things to make a future for myself and a career for myself, and show that like you're very passionate about it. It's definitely hard, and yes, I have definitely, to answer your question, I've definitely felt pushback, and like they're very unsure for a long time, but it just gets better as you go. Yeah.
Wait it out kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. Good advice.
But I mean, I hear you started taking art classes since you were younger. So like, in terms of support, like how did that change? Because if they were supportive of you taking art classes and kind of being involved in that sense, why do you think it was different when it turned out to be this is something you want to pursue? Because there really isn't that big of a surprise.
I know. That's what I've been saying. Like, I've been doing this my whole life. I don't know why this is a surprise. But I guess when it turns from like a hobby to like, this is my life forever, and like this is every big decision, I guess there's a little more weight on it than when it's a hobby. I guess that, yeah.
Yeah. And what advice would you give to a lot of, because that's actually one of the reasons we wanted to make this podcast, is that there is a lot of, you're right, misconceptions about being a youth creative, and a lot of people don't feel supported, and that's why they feel like they can't pursue it. So whether it be from your parents or whether it just be external criticisms or things like that, what advice would you give to young artists out there?
That's a really good question. I think, oh my gosh, sorry, I just blanked. Oh.
It's okay. It's
take
a
your time. Deep, we're going
I
deep.
would not feel like I'm on the spot.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I've got lucky in sort of a sense because art school is like everyone is so supportive of like your art, like everyone's very open. And then in some ways it's a little bit hard because a lot of art schools are like majority white, and you know, like a lot of the issues that you're facing, especially when it comes to like cultural things, don't transfer to that like majority white space. And my biggest advice for that is like you gotta really create your own community, and that's what I've learned. Like people aren't just gonna come to you, and like white people aren't just gonna suddenly understand exactly what you're talking about. And I think that happens through making work and, you know, talk. And if you see someone's work and you like it a lot and you connect to it, you got to talk to them. And then eventually, like, you kind of create this community of people that's kind of going through the same thing, I guess. I completely forgot your question, but I guess that's my answer.
It, so it's fine.
Cool, good.
It's great. We're smooth sailing. It's amazing.
Well, I want to extend on the idea of like, you know, dealing with race and the differences in culture, because that's what your art is mainly targeted towards, you know, influences of race and Western ethnocentrism. I can say it now. So like, how has that been an issue that, you know, has impacted you? Why did that become something that you have dived into so much and, you know, made it so important when it comes to your art form?
I never thought that those things affected me when I was little. I don't know if you guys like
Same.
yeah. You like when you're a
You never
kid,
see
you
it.
You're
you
not aware
never
of it.
understand it, and then you grow up and you're like, oh,
You're
that
like,
wasn't
what
good.
did I
That
go
was
through?"
bad. Yeah, and it's really like kind of messes you up when you like grow up and you like think about this childhood that you thought was like pink and rosy and perfect, and you're like,
Right.
oh, that was racist. It's weird. And it puts like a weird buffer on like, I don't know if buffer is the right word, but like a weird lens of like how you see your childhood, and it completely changes things. But especially going to a primarily white school, when it's really hard. It's hard to find validation in the work that you're making, especially when you don't have your own community of people that like connect to that work. It's definitely hard to like feel like your work is heard and the things that you're saying are heard, because to an extent it just can't be to the same level as like someone that is not, or like someone that totally understands that experience can. But yeah, it becomes more and more influential every day, because you learn about, you know, all of these things around you that like affect, that are like influenced by like Eurocentrism and ethnocentrism and like racism itself, and you notice more and more, and especially like growing up in a primarily white institution, I believe is the term. It's you notice your differences so much more, and I think it's really important, especially when you're growing up with like immigrant parents, to like say those things that you're struggling with. Like it's so important, because you say them and then everyone else is like, oh my god, me too. And I think a lot of children of immigrants like experience like feeling like what they're saying is not valid or important, or like they're alone in certain things, but they're just not. And it's so common, and we're all going through very similar things. And if people like BIPOC started like getting the platforms to say the things that they wanted to, it would just be, you know, it helps those younger kids grow up and feel like everything that they're feeling is okay, you know? And you can't assimilate all of these, you can't take, you know, like growing up and put it in like a box of like Eurocentrism of like, this is like how everyone grows up, and this is what everyone goes through, and this is what everyone's parents are like, because it's not like that. And there's so much cultural influence and race influence and just like societal influence that like affects teenagers, kids, adults of color like differently. And you have to say those things and solidify them and make them tangible, so that, you know, we can understand them better and make growing up easier, and, you know, something that we can understand a little bit better.
And I think that point is, sadly so relevant to today in our, day and age in 2021. I never thought I'd be saying that, but it's so true. Why do you think it's important for, this issue, especially dealing with racism and cultural identity? Why do you think it's important for youth to be aware and educated on this issue?
Well, it affects so many of us, and like you see it everywhere. Like it's not just in PAL, it's not like just with your friends that like racism comes out. It comes out in like very destructive ways in the police system against Black and Indigenous people, even in like the medical system, I guess, like doctors, like there's medical racism. And like if you don't start like talking about these things when everyone's choosing their career paths, then you end up with what we have now, which is these systems and institutions that are just like not good, like it's just not good. And you gotta teach it early, and starting in elementary school is great, and they kind of do the bare minimum, but you gotta start somewhere. But like you gotta actively keep teaching it, because I don't remember what I learned in math like 5 years ago. Like you have to keep drilling it in to like guarantee or like solidify like a healthy and like equitable future for everyone, because when you don't teach those things, you end up with like systems that are actively hurting people. And it's so important that people understand the way that this like racism like infects literally everything. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. I was curious to hear if you have like a specific experience or like an aha moment in realizing kind of, because you talked about how you didn't, all kids are somewhat sheltered when they're growing up.
Yeah.
Like personally, I thought I was above that when I was growing up. You don't realize that your elementary school teachers were like racist. You don't realize these things.
Yeah.
So how did you kind of transition into a better understanding now, and how did that reflect in terms of your art?
Oh.
Deep questions.
We got the deep questions, yeah.
Wow. How did I come to understanding? It's really gradual, I think. Like you're lying in bed one night just trying to go to sleep, and then you remember, you're like it's like a memory from 12 years ago.
You feel it too.
Yeah.
It comes back.
And it's just like, oh, and it comes every now and then, and sometimes like an interaction with someone triggers something, like a memory of that. What was the question? I'm so sorry.
No,
Sorry, oh my god.
Like what was like the triggering experience? I mean, I get that it's gradual, but like I mean, how did you kind of learn more about what you experienced? Because I did not know what I had gone through until I talked with other people who also reflect on these things and realize, why did we not say anything towards these racist elementary school teachers?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Definitely talking to people, but like the biggest, I think, transitional moment for me where I was like, oh, was like, I think it was in grade 9. And it was like first year of high school. I got to go to school in Toronto. I live in Mississauga. So like going to school in Toronto was so cool. Yeah. And like meeting all these people who were like so cool and like dressed so cool and they make art. And like there's a pressure to look a certain way, especially when you go to a school full of like primarily white people. And like trying to understand myself, and find confidence in who I was. I realized that like I can't find confidence in who I am and the way that I look if I just like don't understand it at all. And there was a lot missing. There was a lot of things that I didn't understand about myself, like, and the way that I guess my appearance, a lot of it, like, I didn't understand my appearance in relation to the white people around me. Like, it confused me a lot. Finding confidence in, like, the 9th grade is already, like, really awful.
Oh my God.
But especially when you, like when you're going to a school that's just, like, full of these beautiful people who, like, fit the Eurocentric beauty standards.
Right.
That was like definitely a big stepping stone of like realizing like I'm different from these people, and I might feel bad now, and then growing in, I feel bad about it now, and then kind of growing into and understanding why I feel that way. That almost maybe was a trigger of it, and then it's just like noticing that otherness and all of these different fields and kind of understanding that. And definitely talking with other people is super important. And art making was definitely a big part of that as well.
Wow. Well, you know what? We've been torturing you with these very deep questions, but you have been like, I am on the edge of my seat with your answers. Genuinely,
Oh
you
my
seem like
gosh.
such an not only educated but passionate person in what you do and what you want to advocate for, and that is such a refreshing perspective and voice to have, especially in art. And I
you.
genuinely mean that. I am not
Thank
just saying that for the
you.
sake of this. So thank you for doing what you do and
Oh
seriously
my
for talking about
gosh.
this stuff.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and you know what? We're gonna cool it on the deep questions because we're gonna wrap it up and give you a break. You know, it's okay. But I did want, personally, I have
Okay.
one quick question.
Sure.
Because I know you're like films, and I am not, anywhere near talented enough to make them. Although I am a love.
You never know. Start with the iMovie.
We'll see.
Start with the
Exactly.
iMovie.
Maybe I just submit some trailers I made when I was
Yeah.
7 or 8, and we'll
Do
see what
it.
happens. But I wanted to know if you had a favorite film or filmmaker.
Oh,
I know
this question
every
is
person-
so hard.
I know.
Even deeper, Amber.
I'm just trying to think about like my letterbox favorites right
Oh my
now.
God. Oh,
Take your
yes,
time.
yes.
I think my number one, I don't know if it's my favorite, like, I don't know if this is like not a cool film to like, but it was like super influential. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. I love that film so much. It was the first film that like I felt reflected my experience with like relationships with other people, like friendships with other people. And it's about like two dudes like making films, and they're just like amateur filmmakers, and they make a bunch of films. And it's like, I think a really, really beautiful film about like friendship and loss and creativity, and wanting to do so much for a person but not being able to express it, which I really feel because I don't know how to express affection to people. And yeah, that film definitely inspired me to be like, oh, filmmaking is really cool. And then probably, oh my God, I could talk all day. Last
Go
Black Man in
for
San
it.
Francisco, incredible film, great film.
gosh.
Everyone should watch it. If you feel you don't belong, you need to watch that film. Moonlight,
Oh my God.
obviously.
I was waiting for this. I was waiting.
Moonlight completely changed the way that I see everything. It's beautiful, and it taught me like literally everything. It taught me how to write dialogue in a completely different way. After I watched it, I went online, I looked up the script, and I like read the whole thing. And then My Neighbor Totoro, beautiful film.
Yes.
Childhood, just nostalgia.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Perfect. No, you just made me love you even more after that. That was amazing. Cool. Okay, I just needed to ask that for my sake.
Okay, well, Amber asked the film question, so I'll ask the art question.
Oh yes, of course. We gotta balance
Is there a specific piece of art that you made that is like either your favorite or something that you wish people you can talk about it, because I mean you don't often get to talk about visual arts. It's
That's
usually-
true.
You just look at the art. So is there a specific piece of art that you've made that you really want to, I don't know, explain more?
Yeah, I recently did a painting. It's called The Yellow Terror in All Her Glory. Hopefully you guys can put a photo
Well,
somewhere.
We
Put
will.
it up.
Don't worry.
Oh,
We got it.
that's so cool. I'm so excited for it to be like somewhere. Yeah, it's the biggest painting I've ever done, 4 by 5 feet. And it's the most like conceptually like heavy probably thing that I've ever like done. It's inspired by this 1899 anti-Chinese immigration like cartoon. That's like, I feel like every Asian person has probably seen it. It's like, it's kind of traumatic, but instead of like having this man who's like seen as a terror immigrating to the United States, I replaced it with a woman, and it's kind of more about the fetishization of Asian women. So in the original cartoon, there's like a Asian man like stepping over a white woman because he's like a danger to the white women of North America, so we shouldn't let them in. And I replaced it with a Asian woman stepping over her own skin, and she's just like full of rage and anger. It's kind of just about the anger of Asian women, but also like you kind of, by replacing like that Asian man with an Asian woman and the white woman with like the Asian woman's own like self and body, like the Asian woman's existence and her Asianness is the biggest danger to her body and herself because of like the sexualization of Asian women and fetishization in general. And it's definitely the most fulfilling piece that I've ever done. It was such a cool process, biggest painting ever, and I am really proud of that one.
Wow.
That's
well,
deep. How
we're
long
gonna
did it
have
take?
yeah. Please pause.
How long did
If
the
you're
art?
looking at this visually, just zoom in, look at it properly, because like that sounds incredible.
I think I did it. It was over winter break, and I was obviously doing nothing. I didn't see anyone, so I would just be like hunched over in my room, like painting for like hours.
That's what we should take.
I think it took me a week and a half or 2 weeks or something, because it was just like every day hours. Yeah.
Art.
Yeah.
It takes so much time.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, why do we do this, guys?
Same with filmmaking too, like the editing process.
You can
like,
you can start editing and you're in there for like 5 hours. You look at the clock, you're like,
It's it's
You're
a
like, where did time
blessing.
go?
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yes.
It's very fulfilling to kind of see how it develops.
oh,
But
for sure.
damn, sitting in front of a computer for that long can't be healthy for anybody.
No way. No
Well,
way.
quarantine. If anything, quarantine has taught us it's that clearly.
Oh yes.
True.
But thank you so much, Julia. For
Thank you
being
so much for
here.
having me.
Yeah, for talking to us. You were such a cool person. I
Oh,
love your personality.
you too.
Again, you are seriously such a passionate person. You are gonna do some amazing things in the arts field.
Thank you.
I cannot wait to see what you come up with next, because clearly it's gonna be amazing.
Thank you.
And you all should please make sure to check out her work. We're gonna have her personal account and her art account and all of the things that she's referencing in description. So make sure to check her out and show her some love.
Yeah.
Yes, show her
Is there
some love,
anything?
guys.
Yeah.
Is there anything you want to plug?
I want to plug.
Yeah.
I mean, just go, give my Instagram a follow maybe. Give me a few likes. That would be
Link it up,
nice.
link
That's
it up.
other than that, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Okay.
Well, thank you again so much. Thank
Thanks
you
for
to our
having me.
viewers for listening in and watching. And you can expect another amazing episode soon. So we love you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.